Subscribe to this YouTube channel and please enjoy watching this video. Here we go. Sometimes it's best letting footballers show their talents on the field, because when it comes to articulating their thoughts off it, things can go south. Footballers of past and present haven't always painted themselves in the best light over the years. From jovial jibes to bizarre analogies to some quotes that leave you perplexed, scratching your head, footballers over the years have produced some absolute literacy gold. And, although the dim-witted stereotype may be slightly unfair, one thing is for sure, you'll be reverberating with laughter while you sift through the best quotes. There are certain figures that just have that knack for plucking a memorable quote out of, presumably, thin air. Some are full of wit, some are comical, and others are hilariously incorrect in some way, shape or form. There are some absolute belters out in the realms of the internet, it just takes a while to find them. Fear not, as here at Dugout News YouTube channel, we've collated the very best, and although we were spoiled for choice, we've managed to whittle it down to the best 20. From Jose Mourinho comparing the transfer business to shopping at Waitrose, to Paul Gascoigne struggling to do simple mathematics, to even Stuart Pearce claiming he can see the carrot at the end of the tunnel. Ian Rush. Djimi Traoré had to adapt to the English game, and he did that by going out on loan to Lens last season. Liverpool cult hero Ian Rush really pulled an all-timer out of the bag with this one. Djimi Traoré arrived in Merseyside back in 1999 and endured a somewhat torrid time in England's top flight. Rush felt the France-born centre-back needed to go out on loan for some much-needed minutes at senior level in order to adjust to the trials and tribulations of English football. The problem with Rush's quote? Lens is in France, not England. Better luck next time, Ian. Alan Shearer. I was watching the Blackburn game on TV on Sunday when it flashed on the screen that George, had scored in the first minute at Birmingham. My first reaction was to ring him up. Then I remembered he was out there playing. Yeah, that's not possible, Alan. While it would be quite interesting for players to have a quick phone break, that is a rule that hasn't been introduced thus far. He may be the Premier League's all-time top goal scorer and part of Newcastle United's most used Premier League 11, but it's not unfair to say that this wasn't his finest moment. Pele. I think that France, Germany, Spain, Holland and England will join Brazil in the semi-finals. The quintet of countries that Pele has mentioned in his quote were, of course, all reasonable picks to join his native Brazil in the semi-finals of the World Cup, but as the competition's rules go, only 4 nations can fill those sacred spots. The Brazilian, one of the greatest players to emerge from their nation, was an on-field monster, but to think that there is room for 5 teams in the semi-finals is, well, hilarious. Widely regarded an all-time great, and rightly so, you'd think that the great Pele would understand the simple concept of a tournament. Stuart Pearce. They can see the carrot at the end of the tunnel. There's been an evident combination of phrases through a sea of confusion here, but we're not sure how Stuart Pearce has reached this conclusion. What he was looking for was light at the end of the tunnel, but instead combined it with carrot and stick, at least that's what springs to mind. In all honesty, Pearcey probably didn't have much of a clue himself, hot under the collar when quizzed in front of the cameras and lights. It's the thought that counts, though, and at least the intention of his words were positive. Michael Owen. I was really surprised when the FA knocked on my doorbell. Getting an international call-up is often the pinnacle of a footballer's career. Michael Owen, named as one of football's biggest traders following his decision to join Manchester United in 2009, despite his previous status as a Liverpool icon, got his international wish back in February 1998, and it's safe to say that the nerves got better of the former Newcastle United and Real Madrid talisman here. Unless the ex-England international is living in the future and has installed the latest technology where doorbells can be knocked, rather than rung, he messed up on one of the biggest occasions of his career. Graham Souness. If you're going to win the Premier League, you're going to have to finish ahead of Chelsea and Manchester City. As funny and straightforward as it is, Souness was onto something here. Not only is he correct in naming 2 of the Premier League's best sides, who every rightful winner is tasked with triumphing against, but he's right, finishing ahead of the duo is exactly what teams need to do to be crowned champions. The problem, however, is that even someone who doesn't watch or understand the rules of football could tell you this. Oh, and he forgot the other 17 teams. But we'll let him off, because he's technically correct. David Beckham. Well, I can play in the center, on the right, and occasionally on the left side. On face value, this quote doesn't seem too outlandish, because every statement perfectly applies to Beckham's toolkit. A scorer of one of the Premier League's best ever goals, his halfway line effort against Wimbledon, the former Manchester United midfielder's global icon persona often clouded over fans' outlook on the Englishman, but once his highlights from the 1999 Champions League final emerged, everyone was quick to realize how much of a supreme talent he was. Still wondering why the quote is so funny? He was asked, in an interview, whether he would describe himself as volatile, not versatile. Eric Cantona. I might have said that, but on the whole, I talk a lot of rubbish. Former Manchester United and France striker Eric Cantona was quite the chaotic character, wasn't he? From his kung fu kick antics against Crystal Palace, to claiming he is a level above the rest, hence the nickname King Eric. The self-elected moniker was a gifted talisman known for his clinical nature and unusual personality. Though, it is his former attribute that saw him plunder 161 strikes in his 423-game club career. His quote perfectly encapsulates what Cantona was about as, he's right, he did talk his fair share of rubbish. Steven Gerrard. Lionel Messi can do some amazing things, but anything he can do Joe Cole can do as well, if not better. One of these is someone who has won the Ballon d'Or 8 times, while the other is a one-time nominee. Hilarious stuff. Admittedly, Joe Cole was a superb footballer at the peak of his powers, one included in West Ham United's greatest ever Academy 11. But comparing him to one of the greatest players to ever live in the form of Lionel Messi is somewhat delusional. In Steven Gerrard's case, he even claimed that Cole could do anything the Argentine could do, if not better. George Best. He cannot kick with his left foot, he cannot head a ball, he cannot tackle, and he doesn't score many goals. Apart from that, he's alright. Legendary winger George Best slightly contradicted himself here by naming 4 key aspects of football that the high-profile player in question was poor at before going on to say he was still alright. Best was describing a specific player, here. Was it a player that he had faced in his day that wasn't quite up to scratch, or someone that really stood out like a sore thumb? Nope, it was David Beckham, the 6-time Premier League winner. Oh, George. Wayne Rooney. I'm more afraid of my mum than Sven-Goran Eriksson or David Moyes. Unless Wayne Rooney's mum is a former professional boxer or a bouncer on the doors of one of London's main clubs, this quote hasn't got much substance. That said, it seems as if it's more of a jibe at the 2 names he mentioned. Typical Rooney. The free-scoring Englishman played under both Sven-Goran Eriksson and David Moyes for England and Manchester United, respectively, but claims that neither were too scary, at least not as scary as his mum. Anyway. It's oddly hilarious and could only come from someone like Waza, often known for his happy-go-lucky persona. Jose Mourinho. Please don't call me arrogant, but I'm European champion and I think I'm a special one. Jose Mourinho has made the trip around Europe plying his managerial trade for some of the continent's elite sides, including Manchester United, Real Madrid, Porto, and Inter Milan. As such, his self-proclaimed title of the Special One is rather fitting, but this quote makes little to no sense at all. On one hand, the Portuguese icon is asking not to be called arrogant while listing off that he's A, the European champion, and B, the Special One. That, Jose, is the epitome of arrogance. Jose Mourinho, again. The style of how we play is very important. But it is omelets and eggs. No eggs, no omelets. It depends on the quality of the eggs. In the supermarket, you have class 1, 2, or class 3 eggs, and some are more expensive than others, and some give you better omelets. So, when the class 1 eggs are in Waitrose and you cannot go there, you have a problem. Mourinho added again. This time with a shopping reference to the transfer market. And no, your eyes are not deceiving you. Quite jovial in itself, though that was him in a nutshell. Didn't have Mourinho down, and Mourinho added again. This time with a shopping reference to the transfer market. And no, your eyes are not deceiving you. Quite jovial in itself, though that was him in a nutshell. Didn't have Mourinho down as a Waitrose shopper, mind. Phil Neville. Liz Hurley, she's nice. I'd take her to Pizza Express, no posh restaurants. We'd go for pizza then to watch Grease or something. Footballers are renowned for earning copious amounts of money in return for their trade and can often be seen spending their downtime, especially in the modern era, wining and dining in the very best restaurants, spending big on houses and holidaying in the Maldives. Not for Phil Neville, however, a quick trip to Pizza Express would suffice if he ever got the chance to take English actress Liz Hurley on a date. Then it's Grease to top off the night. Who said romance was dead? Paul Gascoigne. I'll tell you what my real dream is. I mean my absolute #1 dream that will mean I die a happy man if it happens. I want to see a UFO. They're real. I don't care if you look at me like that. UFOs are a definite fact and I've got to see one. Many footballers dream of lifting trophies, whether that be the World Cup with their nation or the Champions League with their beloved club, but not former Tottenham Hotspur and England ace Paul Gascoigne. Instead, it was all about extraterrestrial life and UFOs that he wanted to witness. Claiming that seeing a UFO in the flesh was his real dream, he went on to admit that he will die a happy man if he is to fulfill his wish. You can't help but chuckle. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. What, John, Carew does with a football, I can do with an orange. Every football fan can tell you how self-centered Zlatan Ibrahimovic was. Yes, he may have scored 20 hat-tricks in the 21st century, a return that puts him 14th among all footballers, but he truly acts like he's the best thing since sliced bread. And this quote embodies his personality expertly. Referencing former Aston Villa star John Carew, he suggested that whatever the imposing centre-forward could do, he could do with an orange, insisting that his talent is levels above. Admittedly, he may have a point, but there was no end to his self-belief as he once tried to reason why he believes he's the greatest football of all time. Okay, Zlatan. Paul Gascoigne, again. I've had 14 bookings this season, 8 of which were my fault, but 7 of which were disputable. Maths has never been Gascoigne's strong point, obviously. A supremely talented footballer in his time, the Englishman was just as famous for his cheeky-chappy antics off the field. From iconic quotes to controversial celebrations, the enigmatic Geordie was football's version of the class clown, and people loved him for it. But this aforementioned quote is next level. According to Gascoigne, he had 14 bookings one season, 8 of which he admitted being at fault for. 7 of them, however, he deemed disputable, but that totals 15. Oh, Paul. Frank Lampard. Macas, Claude Makelele, normally a 1 in 10 man. Most players score 9 out of 10, but he misses 9 out of 10. There's nothing quite like playfully embarrassing your teammate, is there? Frank Lampard did just that when he described Claude Makelele's subpar penalty record. When a friend of yours is usually struggling, you opt for a few words of encouragement in the hopes of seeing an upturn in form, but not on Lampard's watch. While the majority of players make bagging from 12 yards out look like second nature, the former Chelsea man hilariously claimed his midfield partner, Makelele, was a 1 in 10 man. That's got to sting. Sir Bobby Robson. Manchester United dropped points, Liverpool dropped points, Chelsea dropped points, Everton dropped points, so in a way we haven't lost anything at all really, although we dropped all 3. Now this is just factually wrong. There's no point in even trying to defend the great Sir Bobby Robson here. Of course, seeing your Premier League rivals all crumble to no points over one weekend is magical, even more so when you win. Robson's side didn't do that on this occasion, however, but still claimed they hadn't lost anything at all really. Not entirely sure that's how it works, but each to their own. David May. Apparently, when you head a football, you lose brain cells, but it doesn't bother me. I'm a horse. No one's proved it yet, have they? Some scientific wisdom here from one of Manchester United's forgotten men. Claiming that there is no substance to the notion that heading a football can have detrimental effects, David may hilariously insisted that he was a horse as a way of disproving the first statement, but it probably had the opposite effect that he'd hoped. Because you're not a horse, David, are you? You're quite clearly a human. Still a very funny quote, purely for its nonsensical nature. Let us know what you think about the entire thing, in the comments section below. Additionally, stay tuned and subscribe to this YouTube channel for the latest news and updates from around the world. We sign out.